Anxiety. It's a word we hear all the time, but what does it really mean when it feels like it's starting to take over? In this explainer, we're going to cut through the noise. We're going to get a clear look at what anxiety is and what it isn't, and uncover some really powerful, science-backed ways to manage it.
Okay, so first things first, feeling anxious does not mean something is wrong with you. It's a completely normal part of being human. I mean, the Mayo Clinic says it right there. Just think of it like your body's built-in alarm system. It's a response to stress that's meant to keep you alert. You know that pit in your stomach you get before a big presentation? That's not a weakness. That's just your anxiety doing its job. But what happens when that alarm system gets, well, a little glitchy? When it starts going off for no reason? When does that everyday worry stop being a temporary thing and start, running your life? That's the really critical question we're about to dig into. To find that line, we've got to understand what an anxiety disorder actually is and how it goes way, way beyond just being a little worried.
So, from a clinical standpoint, an anxiety disorder is a whole different ballgame. It's when that worry becomes frequent, intense, and just persistent. A lot of times it's completely out of proportion to what's actually happening. It's a condition where anxiety and panic start to get in the way of daily life and feel almost impossible to get a handle on.
So what's the real difference here? Well, think of it like this. Normal worry, it's usually tied to a specific problem, and then it goes away. But with an anxiety disorder, the worry just doesn't quit. It's often huge compared to the actual problem, and it's so hard to control that it starts to mess with your work, your relationships, and just your ability to live your life. And what's really fascinating is that anxiety isn't just one single thing. Nope, it's a whole spectrum of related but pretty distinct disorders, and each one has its own unique way of showing up.
Let's just take a quick look at 4 of the most common types. You've got generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. The core feature there is this constant, uncontrollable worry about, well, pretty much everything. And that leads to a lot of chronic overthinking. Then there's panic disorder, which is all about these sudden, intense waves of fear, which can cause people to avoid any place they think might trigger an attack. Social anxiety disorder, that comes from a deep, deep fear of being judged, which often leads people to withdraw from social situations. And finally, specific phobias, that's an irrational fear of one particular thing, like spiders or heights, which results in, you guessed it, trying to avoid it at all costs.
Okay, so understanding anxiety is a huge first step. But what can you actually do when you feel that wave of panic start to rise? This next part is all about practical, in-the-moment tools to help you find your footing again.
I absolutely love this metaphor from the Cleveland Clinic. It's so perfect. Anxiety can feel just like a storm, right? Just whipping your thoughts all over the place. Grounding techniques are basically strategies that help you stay rooted, right here in the present moment, instead of getting swept away by that storm inside your head. One of the best known and most effective methods is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. It's designed to pull your focus out of your spiraling thoughts and into your senses. You just pause and you identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. It's like a sensory checklist that forces your brain to pay attention to the physical world around you, which pulls it away from the fear center and back to the more logical parts. And hey, there are other simple physical things you can do too. For example, just tightly clenching your fists and then slowly releasing them. It gives all that anxious energy a physical place to go, and it signals to your body that it's okay to let go of the tension. Or you can try repeating a simple positive phrase to yourself, like, "I am safe right now." It sounds simple, but those words can be incredibly powerful. Grounding techniques are fantastic for that immediate relief, for putting out the fire. But for long-term management, a really crucial strategy is working directly with the thought patterns that are fueling the anxiety in the first place. And this brings us to one of the most effective, science-backed treatments for anxiety, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. It's all built on this simple but really profound idea. Our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors are all linked together. If you change one, you can actually change the others. It's a really practical, skills-based approach. So, how does this cycle actually work? Well, it almost always starts with an automatic negative thought. That instant what if that just pops into your head. For example, everyone at this party thinks I'm being super awkward.
Now, that little thought isn't harmless. It immediately triggers a really powerful emotional response. We're talking fear, dread, even panic. All of a sudden, your heart is racing, your palms get sweaty. That thought just created a very real physical sensation in your body.
And what's our natural instinct when we feel that kind of fear? We want to get away from it, right? So this leads to avoidant behavior. You make an excuse and you leave the party. And while that brings this immediate sense of relief, it accidentally reinforces the original thought. You've just taught your brain that, yep, that party was dangerous. And that's how this powerful, self-feeding cycle gets started. This is exactly where CBT comes in, with the tools to break that cycle. With something called cognitive restructuring, you learn how to spot and challenge those anxious thoughts. And with exposure therapy, you gradually and safely start to face the situations you've been avoiding, which teaches your brain that there isn't any real danger after all.
Now, while all of these self-help strategies are incredibly valuable, sometimes getting the support of a professional is the absolute key to making lasting change. So let's look at the options for long-term treatment.
Here's the good news, and it's really good news. Anxiety disorders are highly treatable. The most common and effective treatments are psychotherapy, like the CBT we just talked about, and medication. And a lot of times, the most effective plan actually involves a mix of both.
When it comes to medication, it's really important to know that there are different types. On one side, you have SSRIs and SNRIs. Think of these as maintenance medications. They're often the first thing a doctor will try. The key thing to know is that they take several weeks to really start working, and they're designed for long-term management. On the other side, you have benzodiazepines. These are fast-acting. They provide relief really quickly, but, and this is a big but, they carry a high risk of tolerance and dependence.
So, how do you know when it might be time to seek professional help? Well, the Mayo Clinic suggests it's time if your worrying is getting in the way of your work or your relationships, if your fear feels like it's impossible to control, or if you're also feeling signs of depression. If any of that sounds familiar, it might be a good time to talk to a doctor.
Wow, we've covered a lot. From what anxiety really is to a whole toolkit of strategies to manage it. The path to managing anxiety isn't about taking one giant leap. It's about a series of small, consistent steps. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What is one small step, no matter how tiny it seems, that you can take today to move forward on your path?
Okay, let's dive into understanding and coping with anxiety.
Right, so we all get anxious. But what's the tipping point? When does it become a disorder?
Well, the key difference is how often, how intense, and how much it messes with your life.
Yeah, this is more than just stress. It's a real medical condition. And importantly, it's treatable.
Anxiety isn't just in your head. It shows up physically too. Look out for these signs.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all thing either. Anxiety actually comes in a few different forms.
But here's the good news. Anxiety is super treatable. So let's check out the toolkit.
Okay, one of the most effective tools out there is a type of talk therapy.
It's called CBT, and it works because it teaches you real practical skills you can use. So how does it work? Well, CBT has this really straightforward 3-step process.
Therapy is a huge help, but sometimes medication can also be part of the treatment plan.
And what's cool is different meds are used for different things, from long-term to short-term.
But remember, you gotta talk to a doctor to figure out what's right for you.
Okay, besides professional help, there are things you can do in the moment to cope. Let's look at 2 techniques you can use anytime, anywhere you feel overwhelmed.
This first one uses your 5 senses. It's designed to pull you right back to the present.
Another amazing tool is just your breath. Slowing it down calms your whole nervous system.
It's called box breathing. It's super simple and really helps with the physical symptoms.
The main thing to remember is that anxiety is absolutely treatable. Help is out there.
So, I'll leave you with this. What's one small step you can take today?